it's Holly. We're gonna make some sourdough bread. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make the starter. So sourdough bread is a bread that has to have a starter. It's a liquid that you feed every 3 to 5 days, although this recipe is quite forgiving. I have gone up to 7 or 8 days between feedings, and I've still been able to bake really good bread with it. So what you will need is some yeast. I use a packet of Fleischmann's active dry yeast. You will need some hot water. I recommend getting it as hot as it will come out of your tap, but there's no need to heat or boil the water on the stove, just as hot as it will come out of your tap. You also need sugar and potato flakes. Just regular, basic, cheap potato flakes. Do not use mashed potato mix that has other ingredients in it like milk or butter products. Just regular dry flakes. And here are your ingredients for the sourdough starter. You need 1 packet of active dry yeast. If you have a container of yeast, 1 packet equals 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. You need 3 tablespoons of potato flakes. Again, these are regular potato flakes. There's nothing else in them, no milk products. You need 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. And you need 1 cup of hot water. As hot as you can get it coming out of your tap, but there's no need to heat or boil it on your stove. Okay, today I have some starter that I've been keeping going for at least 6 months. I think possibly closer to a year. I haven't been keeping track, but I'm going to be baking tomorrow. And so today, instead of making brand new starter, I'm just feeding some starter that I already have. To feed the starter, you need 1 cup of very hot water, as hot as you can get from your tap, but you don't have to cook it or boil it. 3 tablespoons potato flakes, just regular basic potato flakes, nothing in them. And 3/4 cup of white sugar. And of course the starter that I had in the refrigerator. So after you make your starter, you want to let it sit out all day or all night. If you make it in the evening, you can leave it till morning. The recipe calls for 8 to 12 hours, but I sometimes let it sit for longer. I don't usually let it sit shorter than 8 hours. But again, this recipe is very forgiving. I have left starter out all day and all night, and I've still baked on it the next day. So it's very forgiving. But generally what you want to do is feed first thing in the morning or right before you go to bed at night. And then if you feed in the morning, by evening time, it's ready to move on to the next step. Or if you feed it at bedtime, when you get up in the morning, it's ready. So when you're starting with a brand new starter, like we did a minute ago, you want to leave that starter sitting out for 8 to 12 hours. Then it goes in the refrigerator. You don't bake on the initial starter. It goes in the refrigerator 3 to 5 days. Again, I've left it in the refrigerator as long as 6, 7, or 8 days. But you want to leave it in the refrigerator for several days. And then you can take it out and use it to bake on. So we'll pretend that we started this one 5 days ago with our brand new starter. And we let it set out all day because I usually feed or start the starters first thing in the morning. So we let it set out all day, and then we put it in the refrigerator, and that's where it's been the last 5 days. So now we're ready to bake on it. So we want to take our starter and stir it up and pour it into a bowl. And you're just stirring it because as it sits in the refrigerator, the sugar and the potato flakes will settle. So here's our starter, and we're going to add our potato flakes. And we're going to add our sugar. I know it seems like a lot of sugar. We're going to add the hot water. Sometimes it'll bubble really nicely. I don't know if you can hear it, but it fizzes a little. There's some fizzing in there. And then we just stir it really good. What I'm going to do with it now is cover it with tin foil or saran wrap. Sometimes I lay a towel over top of the tin foil. You just want to cover it so that it's secure. It is sugary, so if you have any gnats or flies in your kitchen, they will definitely find it. So you want to make sure it's covered really well so that nothing gets in it. And then you just set it to the side. Doesn't need to be in an area that's really cold or really warm. Just regular room temperature is fine. You probably don't want to put it somewhere that your air vent is blowing on it. My house has air vents in the ceilings, and so I have to be careful where I set that because I don't want a draft blowing on it. So this sits all day long, and then before I go to bed tonight is when I will mix up the bread dough. Okay, by now you should have some bread starter made, or you should have fed some starter that you already had. So I set mine on the counter. It's not in a drafty place. It's also not too warm and not too cold, just regular room temperature. Also, I forgot to mention, you don't want to seal off your bowl. The bread starter makes air as it bubbles and fizzes. And so if you put a lid on your bowl or some tight saran wrap, then it could pop open. So just put some tin foil over the top and mash down all the sides, and then lay a towel on it. And that should keep everything out of it. So I'm going to leave my bread starter on the counter all day today and let it do its stuff. And then tonight I'm going to add all of the ingredients to make the bread for it. And so that's where we will go in our next video.